Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is Mechanism, the most recent versions that are out there on 1.16, and perhaps even further into the future. What I'm going to be covering today is a little bit on the basics on how you can get something like this set up here that I'm walking in front of for ore doubling, some simple mechanics, and then I will go into, in the future episodes, on how you can also kind of fast track in a way to get to this little digiminer here that will automatically get all the ores that you could possibly need. So let's get into how we can start off with making a little bit of ore doubling and getting early game set up for Mechanism. So Mechanism has a lot of really cool stuff. Some of it is actually accessible very early on. That I'm talking about, one of them very early on, is a basic fluid tank. This is essentially 14 buckets of some kind of, I don't know, liquid that you could potentially store in here. I recommend you make one of these things with some of your first ingots and or redstone that you get, and you can take with you a whole bunch of lava, because what we're going to be needing is a little bit of lava creation, or at least lava harnessing is what we're going to be using for our power source to power our machines, at least early on. You can always change them out later on, but this is more or less the entry method for any kind of power gen into Mechanism. So once you've made yourself one of these fluid tanks, or just get yourselves a whole bunch of buckets, you can grab yourself a bunch of lava. In order to do so, the default keybind for the basic fluid tank is the letter N, which changes it to bucket mode, on and off. Now off, if I was in survival, I would be placing this in world and it would come out of my inventory. As I'm in creative, it creates a duplicate. If bucket mode is currently on, I can use it just like a bucket. I can pick things up just by clicking on the liquid and getting all of this into my tank. There we go. And looking in here, I now have 8 buckets of lava in there. It's excellent. And then if I want to place any down, I simply just sneak and right click and I will place one out. As I'm in creative, nothing actually left of the tank, but normally it would. So in this case, I'm just going to kind of clean it back up, turn bucket mode off just so that I don't accidentally do anything with it, and then we can continue on. Getting a whole bunch of lava early on will just save you a bit of coal use, but this actually doesn't use a lot of coal unless you really, really want to. What you're going to want to start with, probably going to be a furnace just to get your first ores and stuff, you know, make your first basic fluid tank. And we're going to move into a heat generator, which requires a bit of copper and osmium. These are 2 ores added by Mechanism that you can find underground. And once you get those, you can create this simple device, a heat generator. So let me grab one of these hinks here, and we can place it down in the world. You can see here there is an energy acceptor, or an energy port on this one side, and all the other sides can be covered in some kind of lava. Basically, I've tried other blocks, none of them are accepted. Lava is the only one that really does work. I'm going to turn bucket mode on, and if I were to just pour this on top of it, it would just totally cover the whole thing and just kind of be useless. So what you're going to want to do is have something in the front here, basically covering it up. What I recommend is grabbing your furnace, or one of the furnaces that you have, because you will need several furnaces, and setting it just kind of on top, you know, on the front here, either way you want to go about it, so it's diagonal. Even if it's just a block, as long as it's not burnable, you don't want to be outside. I've burned down a few trees in this just setting up for the video, so be careful about that. And I've got bucket mode turned on, so I can sneak and place against the back of this, and it will currently just flow down and underneath this item, therefore allowing it to create a bit of energy, as you can see here. And it's got a bit of an interface. If you really want to speed things up, you can toss in a bit of, you know, like some lava on the side or something like that, or coal or other burnables, and it will generate heat that way. Currently, it's creating about 29.5 forge energy per tick. So this is going to be used to power your next device that you're going to want to make, your metallurgic infuser. This is basically going to make the parts and pieces for most of your other machinery. It can be used to also kind of exchange some items for others, but more or less it's going to be your part maker that you will need. And it's made with more iron, osmium, and a couple furnaces and redstone. Very simple, very straightforward, and it looks pretty cool when placed down. You put it down here, it'll automatically start getting power from this heat generator, which, as you can see, I'm using the one probe. I'm using the one probe at the top of my screen there, and that is telling me currently it can store up to 64,000 forge energy in its buffer, as you can see here, and it is currently going up. This one here only stores about 8. It also has a lot of other options going on. whereas this one has very few. This just allows it so that it's only accessible by you. You can change it so that nobody can access it, or those that are on your trusted list, which you'll want to access with a security station. You can also turn it off by using your different redstone settings down here, and you can also power things by placing some kind of battery pack in on this side if you want to, add in things or charge things up there. So moving on from that, we have the input here. We've got the fuel, the secondary fuel input over here. We of course have a power section over here that you can charge it with, or you just plug it in with some kind of power cable or something, and your output. If you click dump, it will dump out this fuel over here, whatever you have. If I have some coal currently in there, let me grab a bit of that. I can toss a few pieces in here, and you can start seeing that the meter on the left there is actually increasing. For each one of these I put in, I get 10 millibuckets of carbon. If I hit dump, they all go bye-bye. You never get them back. They are deleted. So keep that in mind. If you want to have certain sides of the machine actually interfacing with different things, you can turn this so that it will actually automatically push things out of it by turning eject on. You can also click on this to change things from input to output and so on. You can also cycle through them for different effects and so on. It's on the items config by default. You have to click the different tabs on the side to change it to energy or the infusion types as you would prefer. You can also drag this around. It's really, really handy. So I'm just letting you know for future reference. But for now, we're going to need it on coal. So we put a bunch of coal in here, and then we're going to get some iron that you hopefully have smelted up at this point, and you'll want to put it in here. Once this thing processes, it turns into enriched iron, as I had showed you, and then you'll reprocess that. Let me grab this here, into steel dust, which then you will smelt into steel ingots. With that, you can make your enrichment chamber, which is your really, really good machine here, but you're going to need steel casing for it, as I was saying, some glass, another osmium ingot, as well as some redstone, and this, a basic control circuit. What's that? This is one of those other components you're going to need the metallurgic infuser for. If I have some osmium, I can put this in here, and it will not work. Reason being is that I cannot make a basic control circuit with carbon as the fuel. Osmium needs to go in, and it needs to be infused with redstone. So therefore, I have all this left over. One thing I could do is either use it up by putting a bunch in here so that I am not wasting that carbon, or I could dump it and then put the redstone in there. Now, if I have a bit of redstone here, let's actually grab a couple of these. Let's put one in for now. And it says redstone 10 millibuckets. I try putting this in here, nothing happens. Reason being is that the recipe for that requires 20 millibuckets, or 2 pieces of redstone by default. So therefore, let's put a second one in, and it's going to start processing that into these other components that we need, the basic control circuits. So once that's done processing, there we go. We get basic control circuits. And of course, you need to make a couple of those ones. Then you can make your enrichment chamber because you've already been able to make your steel casing by double processing your iron ingots. It's a little bit to take on, but don't be afraid here. It expands as you go. Just know that these are your basics. Metallurgic infuser is the one thing that will start making you your machine parts. And then once you've crafted up your enrichment chamber from those parts, you can use it to start ore doubling. So at the moment, let me move these currently out of the way, and we can start expanding what we've got. So there are 2 ways that you can go about doing this. One would be that you continue with the metallurgic infuser on a couple more of the, make a couple more steel ingots so that you can make your basic universal cable, which is just 2 steel in that, and you get 8 of them, which is excellent. So you take this, and it's gonna be all that you really need to start with. You pick this up, and you can move this as well if you so desire. And it should stay where it's at until it gets a block update, but sometimes it'll still move. So you're going to want to be a little bit cautious about that. How to fix it? Well, you just kind of grab it with your, once again, your base fluid tank, and you're good to go. And you can store that while you move things around without having to worry about them, being burned up by the lava. Now what I've got here set up is an area that I can expand with a few more of these. You're going to want to make sure that it's cleared underneath so that the lava can get underneath these as well. But this will allow you to have all 3 of these covered with lava. I would recommend making more heat generators. If you can make an enrichment chamber, then you're going to be set up and be able to expand this. Now, currently, I'm just using this so that I can have my metallurgic infuser up on top and my enrichment chamber just in front of that. Now you don't have to set things up exactly the way I have them. I'm just showing you a way that you can do this. And what this allows me to do is just start placing these down. There we go. And each of these will start powering up at about 29.5 forge energy per tick, which gives me pretty much close to 90. And this uses 20 FE per tick, which, by the way, you can click through it to see the different types of energies if you really want to. You can also have the transporters config set up on here, which I'm not really too bothered by that one. But this will allow you to expand by having more power. By connecting them with the basic universal cables, everything will get extra power because you're going to need it. The enrichment chamber being so powerful of a device, being able to double your ores, is going to be heavily in demand. Your metallurgic infuser, making a lot of the components for all of the other machines, is also going to be in demand, but probably not as much as this one. So, things that I recommend at this point. Well, if you want to see recipes, you click on here. Once again, everything is the same. And if you're curious about this arrow up here, it's an upgrade screen. If you do decide to start making upgrades, you'll want to be very wary. I recommend energy and speed upgrades maybe a little bit later. If you're going to go with anything, I'd suggest energy so that you don't have to keep making machines to power things early on. Basically, you take whatever upgrade you have, you place it in here, it takes a moment, it goes inside, and then you can click on here and see the effect that it has. The effect in this one is that it reduces the power cost by 33%, bringing it down to about 15 forge energy. If you need the upgrade back, you just click on here, and you can actually take it out. And yes, you can actually put a bunch of upgrades in one, then when you're done with that machine, take them out, dump them in the other machine. It's that simple. It's pretty darn cool, actually. I like it quite a lot. Allows you a bit of functionality when you need one thing done and it doesn't have any upgrades. You can take a bunch of the upgrades from other machines, pop them in there, and get it done a lot quicker. But let's move on from here. Showing you the recipes on here, you can see that you can just process regular ores. But if you look at regular ores like osmium and iron and such, you can actually turn one ore into 2 dusts and then smelt that. Now you can put it in a furnace, which a furnace works. Which, by the way, if you have concerns about this, you can always put a couple furnaces up on the sides just to stop the lava from flowing around. But what I'm recommending at this point, because it actually keeps up quite well, is blast furnaces. Now yes, you'll need some double smelted stone and about 10 ingots for a couple of them, but it's not a bad choice in my mind because they go much faster. They use a bit of coal, which you're not using much coal on in here, or if you've grabbed a bunch of lava in your basic fluid tank, you can just, make a bucket and then just start putting some buckets in there, and those will last you quite some time if you're doing mass quantities. Now the other thing is, let's actually grab one of the ores in here, and I'll put this in. You can start seeing that this will slowly take some time, and you can actually, make things on the side. It'll turn it into iron dust, as I was saying, but you're going to want to be able to transport that around. If you can make some steel ingots and one of those basic control circuits, which is made from osmium and redstone and stuff, then you can even make things go automatically much, much better. But before we do the automation on that, I feel I should mention, we need to change some of these things. Before we were using straight up coal, straight up redstone, but that was very inefficient. One coal is 10 millibuckets, one redstone is 10 millibuckets. That can get very expensive, and I was saying that this mod didn't use very much coal. Well, it does as you progress, but you need to stretch your resources. How to do that? You make these. Enriched carbon, enriched redstone. It even works with diamonds for making enriched diamonds. How does this work? Well, you go into your enrichment chamber, take out that iron dust, and let's grab some coal, for example. I'll put a piece of coal in there, and it will start processing that. In the meantime, I'm going to actually put this iron dust in here, just because I don't want it in my inventory anymore, but this will process into enriched carbon. Then, when I put that in the metallurgic infuser as a fuel, it gives me 80 instead of, boop, 10. So therefore, it's going to, well, octuple your fuel uses for this. Now here's the problem that you run into, is that everything is in a series of 8. So therefore, you're going to want to start processing in those quantities so that you don't have to keep dumping out the fuels over here. What I recommend is you make a second metallurgic infuser, or even a third. Wouldn't hurt, because then you'll at least have different options on here. If you have some leather, or if you have other mods in here, like I have Quark, which allows me to make some frames from glass, and I can put these on here. You can put them on the top or on the front, whatever makes it easier for you, and then you can take a little bit of the item. This is just an organization thing, and let yourself know that this one is going to have a bunch of coal in it, you know, so that you have the, let's grab some enriched items here. Carbon, we're going to grab a bit of carbon, we're going to grab a bit of redstone, and then even a bit of diamond. Why not? This one here is going to have the enriched carbon, which is going to fill it up. This one here is going to have the enriched redstone. This one here is going to have the enriched diamond, and you can always put different displays on them on the front or on the side or whatever you want like that, just so that you can quickly determine what they are on each one of these ones. And then you don't have to worry about dumping them out. You've made some machines. They're not very expensive to make, and you're probably not going to have them all three running at once, so you don't need to worry about your power demands as much, because each one of these machines is still only going to run at 20 FE per tick. So if you're only running one of those and this, you're still not nearly using all of your energy. You could run all of them and not use it. But this is why I'm mentioning this. It's because, let's actually grab that logistical transporter I was talking about. If you grab steel and basic control ingots, you put this on the sides. Actually, I will show you why we're going to want to do this in a minute. Why would I want to have these coming out? This thing runs so slow, right? You'll see in just a moment. But trust me on this. It's gonna be good. We need to put some fuel in here. Need to put some fuel in here. Let me grab some more coal, because that's just going to be easier for me to work with in this demonstration. But right now, the enrichment chamber, if I toss in some iron, let's grab just a bunch of iron ore. It's really slow. Yes, you can put in some upgrades, but instead of doing that, what I'm recommending is that we use a tier installer. There's different tiers available. If I look up tier in JEI, which is just enough items, this mod on the side, it has a basic tier installer, advanced, elite, and ultimate. Each one will add some extra slots to process. So right now we're processing one slot of ore. If I make one of these, which it's another basic control circuits and some other materials, it's going to just be tripled. So there we go. We now have 2 more slots. How to spread these out automatically? You just click here, auto sort, and you've now tripled it. Here's the problem though, is that it says it's using 20 FE per tick per process. So you multiply that by 3, it's running at 60. So therefore, if I've got this running at 60, I've got about 90 power. I could only run 1.5 of these machines at a time. But keep in mind, if I'm not using them to make a lot of stuff, like I've got a couple in here, and then this one here, I might have something processing in that one, then it's still got its own internal buffers. You can also make, you know, batteries, or, you know, more. You could expand with more heat generators or other modes of energy at this point. But either way, you've got these things set up. But they're not going anywhere, right? I was talking about how I wanted to have the blast furnaces working. Well, this is where I'm going to explain the side configs a little bit. On here, you're going to want to turn eject on. And you'll notice output is blue on the right side. Well, the right side's working, left side's not. Okay, let's go back in, change that to output on the left side as well, and what's happening? Nothing? Well, that's because it needs some to actually go out. You're going to have to wait a moment. But if you're processing multiple ores, right now it's sending all of them to one side. If you're processing different types, like let's grab some osmium, for example. I grab a bunch of this, put this over here, and spread those out. It will then start processing that one. And this is how it's really useful, because the blast furnace will be fed another item. There we go. And you can start getting 2 of them processed at a time. You get some gold in here. We could process that as well. Toss the iron over. You could have 3. You could add in another basic logistical transporter. These things here, they come in groups of 8 when you make them, just like the power cables. So that's really, really useful. And therefore, you can see the gold is just sitting here currently. It's actually going to stop when I get to about 32 gold ore, because we're ore doubling, unless we have a place for it to actually go out. And once again, these being vanilla machines, you have to output into the top. But that's just an early way on how you can get into it. The next steps for getting yourself a mining device over here, the digital miner, are going to involve a few more items and maybe a little friend or 2, but we'll get into that next time. So if you guys enjoyed this, please be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and as always, be sure to come visit us on Twitch, and you can always be sure to spread the mischief. Click that notification bell. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.